I knew something was wrong the moment I heard my mother's voice drifting down the hallway. Soft, warm, coated in the kind of sweetness she only used for one child. Hannah, baby, don't worry. We're gonna cover everything. You just focus on your future, okay? Her words floated like chiffon, delicate and precious. And then came the sound that still makes my chest tighten even now. Hannah laughing. Carefree, untouched, light as a feather in a home where I was made of bricks. I stood frozen outside the living room door, my acceptance letter clutched in my hand so tightly the paper crinkled. 4 minutes older. 4 minutes! And somehow that tiny sliver of time had turned into an emotional canyon I never learned how to cross. "We'll pay the full tuition," my father added. His voice was the rare kind he never used on me. Proud, encouraging, warm. "You deserve it, sweetheart." Deserve. The word hit me like a blunt object. I didn't walk into the room. I didn't interrupt. I didn't exist in that moment, not to them. I just stood there, invisible by tradition, listening to the life that would never be offered to me. When the conversation shifted, when the silence after their congratulations stretched long enough, I foolishly allowed myself to hope. Maybe they'd call my name next. Maybe they'd remember the other daughter who got accepted too. But instead, I heard my mother sigh. "Now we need to talk about Camila. She's capable. She'll figure something out. Strong girls always do." My father grunted. He doesn't deserve a free ride, not like Hannah. I felt the words slice through me, quietly, surgically, the way a wound happens before you realize you're bleeding. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heartbeat thundered in my ears so loudly I almost missed what my mother said next. "Let her work. It'll build character." That was the moment something cracked, clean and irrevocable, somewhere deep inside me. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I didn't even breathe. I just turned and walked back to my room, each step feeling heavier than the one before it. When I closed my door, the walls seemed to buckle around me. My acceptance letter slipped from my fingers and fluttered onto my bed like it refused to carry the weight anymore. I stared at it, at my name printed neatly at the top, at the crest embossed in gold. Accounting program. Competitive. Full of promise. But none of that mattered. Not when the people who were supposed to believe in me refused to even see me. My twin sister, born 4 minutes after me, got the golden treatment while I was handed stones and told to build my own castle. But here's the funny thing about stones. They may be heavy, but they are unbreakable. I picked up my letter again. My hand steadied, my breath leveled, my vision sharpened. If they weren't going to help me, if they weren't going to celebrate me, if they weren't going to love me the way they loved her, then they couldn't take credit for who I was about to become. That night, while Hannah slept peacefully in her lavender-soaked room and my parents whispered prayers over her future, I opened my laptop and searched night shift jobs near campus. I refused to let their neglect define my ceiling. But I didn't know then that the road ahead would break me open in ways I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know the exhaustion would carve itself into my bones or that Hannah would mock the very sacrifices I was making to survive. I didn't know I would learn to stop wanting their approval. What I did know, what I felt in my chest like a slow rising flame was this. I may not deserve their help, but I would earn my success, even if it killed me, even if they never cared enough to look. Something was changing inside me, something fierce, something final. And it all started with that one overheard sentence. She doesn't deserve it. They had no idea what they ignited. Not yet. The first week of college should have felt like a dream. The crisp air, the buzzing campus, the feeling of stepping into a new life. But for me, it felt like walking into a storm without a coat. I moved into a tiny off-campus room with peeling paint and a heater that groaned louder than the city buses outside. The landlord handed me a single key and said, "No parties, no noise, and no complaints." I wanted to laugh, as if I had the energy for anything but survival. Meanwhile, my twin sister Hannah moved into a beautifully renovated dorm with string lights, fluffy rugs, and a mini fridge our parents insisted she needed, so you won't have to eat that nasty cafeteria food. They bought her new bedding, a laptop, matching folders, even a decorative plant she'd eventually kill because she never watered anything but her own ego. I watched them unload box after box into her room. No one asked if I needed anything. No one even looked at me long enough to pretend. When I finally stepped forward to say goodbye, my mother pulled Hannah into a hug so tight it looked painful. "Text me every night," she whispered. "I want to know you're safe. College boys are a mess." My father kissed Hannah's forehead. "Call if you need money. Any money. Don't hesitate." Then they turned to me. Marcia's smile flattened, Derek's eyes cooled back to their usual temperature. "Camila," my mother said, giving me a brief pat on the shoulder like I was a coworker leaving early, "be responsible. Don't do anything reckless. And don't ask for money," my father added. "We're already stretched thin with Hannah." They left before I could respond, their backs disappearing down the hallway while Hannah waved at me with the same hand she used to take everything I never got. When I got to my one-room apartment that night, the silence hit me like a slap. I sat on the edge of my mattress, a mattress I bought used from a girl who'd written "no refunds" on the side in Sharpie, and I let myself feel the smallest, sharpest ache. Not sadness, not jealousy, something worse. Unworthiness. I hated that word, hated how it fit too well, hated how it echoed everything my parents made me believe. But classes started the next morning, and I didn't have time to sit in my feelings. I walked into accounting principals at 8 a.m. sharp, eyes burning from lack of sleep. The professor, a tall man with silver hair and a posture too perfect to be natural, scanned the room. Accounting is the language of truth. Numbers don't lie, people do. I didn't know then how those words would become a spine inside me. Hannah breezed into the room 5 minutes late, latte in hand, hair bouncing perfectly. She sat in the center row, already whispering to the girls beside her. She didn't even look my way. Over the next few weeks, my life slipped into a rhythm that felt like both punishment and purpose. I woke up at 5 a.m., studied until class, attended lectures until late afternoon, then worked the 7 p.m. to midnight shift at the library. Dusty shelves, flickering lights, the hum of the printer that never worked right. Students joked that the library was haunted. For me, it felt like sanctuary. But exhaustion crept into my bones. My eyelids felt like 10-pound weights. Some mornings, I barely remembered walking to campus. And every time Hannah passed me with her group of friends, she threw a casual, dismissive smile like she was greeting a fan, not her twin. One night, after a particularly brutal shift shelving books taller than me, I gathered the courage to call my mother. I didn't want much, not tuition, not luxury, just a little help with a textbook I couldn't afford. She answered quickly, her voice bright. "Hannah! Oh, wait. Camila? Everything all right?" I swallowed. I was wondering if you could help me with... "No," she said instantly. "Not harsh, just final. We paid for Hannah. She deserved it, but you didn't." I froze, phone pressed to my ear, words lodged in my throat like shards. "It'll build character," she added before hanging up. Character. the thing they loved reminding me I lacked. I stared at the cracked screen of my phone, at my reflection warped in its surface, my cheeks flushed hot, my jaw clenched. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask her why she even had me if she never intended to love me. But instead, something old and aching inside me curled inward and hardened. I wasn't gonna beg. Not anymore. The next morning, after 3 hours of sleep, I walked into Professor McLean's class and sat in the front row for the first time. He raised an eyebrow, noticing the shift in me. After class, he stopped me. "You have a sharp mind," he said. "A rare one. Don't let exhaustion blur it. Come to office hours." It was the first time since childhood that an adult spoke to me like I mattered. When I walked into his office later that week, he slid a brochure across the desk. Ford National Accounting Scholarship. Only 5 students nationwide selected. Your work ethic makes you a contender. Me? A contender? My throat tightened. But my grades are good, not perfect. He smiled. Perfection is boring. Resilience is what stands out. Resilience. The one thing my family accidentally trained me for. I filled out the application that night with shaking hands, not because I doubted myself, though I did, but because a new thought entered my mind, one that felt dangerous and exhilarating. If I win this, they can't take credit. They can't diminish it. They can't claim they helped. It would be mine, all mine. And for the first time in my life, the idea of that felt better than any love they never gave me. But I didn't realize yet that winning would force them to face something they'd spent years avoiding, who I truly was, and who they chose not to be. I didn't expect to win. I hoped, yes, quietly, secretly, in the small space inside me that still believed I was worth something. But hope had never carried much weight in my life. Still, every night after my library shift, I checked my email, and every night the screen stared back empty. Weeks slipped by, a blur of lectures, assignments, cheap instant ramen, and the soft hum of loneliness. Hana floated through campus in designer sneakers and laughter, surrounded by people who saw her as sunshine. Meanwhile, I spent most nights walking home alone, counting the cracks in the sidewalk because it kept me awake. Then, one Thursday morning, the email arrived. Subject: Congratulations, Camila Moore. My heart stopped. I blinked once, twice. My breath caught in my chest like a held note. My hands trembled so violently I had to grip my desk. I clicked the email. My eyes skimmed the words, but only one sentence seared itself into my brain. You have been selected as one of 5 national recipients of the Ford Accounting Scholars Award. I stared at the screen as a single tear fell and hit my keyboard. Not because I was sad, not because I was overwhelmed, but because no one had ever chosen me before. There was no cheering, no celebratory scream, no jumping up and down, just a quiet, powerful exhale. I covered my face with my hands and let myself feel, really feel, what it meant to be seen based on merit, not favoritism or manipulation. For a moment, I wondered if I should tell my parents, but the thought died as quickly as it surfaced. They didn't earn this moment. Later that day, Professor McLean spotted me in the hallway. "Camila," he said, eyes bright. "I got the email. I knew you could do it." "You did?" I asked, startled. He nodded. "There's a fire in you. People who've been overlooked their whole lives burn the brightest when they get their shot." A strange, warm ache spread in my chest. I wasn't used to praise. I didn't know where to put it. He continued, "The award ceremony is in 2 weeks. Invite your family if you want. Moments like these, sometimes they heal things." I forced a smile, but inside I knew better. My family didn't heal. They performed. Then they disappeared. Still, maybe some part of me, some wounded, tired part, wanted them to see me, not to love me, not to apologize, just to see me. So later that night, I sent a group text. Ceremony in 2 weeks. I won a national scholarship. Here's the address if you want to come. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared, then finally, from Mom. That's good, dear. From Dad. We'll see. From Hannah. OMG, yay. Anyway, do y'all want to come to Maya's garden party next Saturday? It's going to be so cute. I stared at the messages until the screen dimmed. Then I turned the phone off and crawled into bed. I didn't cry. Not anymore. Their neglect wasn't new. It was a language I'd grown fluent in. But the ceremony? That would be my translation of the truth. The 2 weeks passed in a rush of preparation. I bought a simple, elegant black dress from a secondhand shop and ironed it 3 times to make sure it looked new. I straightened my hair into a sleek bob, did my makeup with trembling hands, and repeated a mantra I'd never believed before. You earned this. You earned this. You earned this. The event hall was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, gold-trimmed stage, rows of chairs filled with students and families dressed in pride and excitement. I checked my phone. Nothing from my parents, nothing from Hannah. Typical. I found my seat, heart pounding like it was trying to escape my chest. I smoothed my dress, adjusted my name badge, and took a slow breath. Then, 10 minutes before the ceremony began, I saw them. My mother, Marcia, in a pale blue dress, lips pursed like she smelled something sour. My father, Derek, adjusting his tie as if he were attending a funeral. And Hannah in a shimmering pink dress, camera in hand, already snapping photos of herself instead of anything else. They walked toward me like they were entering the wrong room but decided to sit anyway. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother said, without hugging me. "Camilla," my father nodded stiffly. Hannah barely looked up. "This place is cute." Cute? Cute. A national ceremony attended by executives, sponsors, and stallers from across the country, reduced to cute by the girl who never lifted a finger to deserve anything she had. But I kept my expression even. I wouldn't let them take this moment. The ceremony began and the host announced each recipient with a short biography. My eyes widened when he read the first story, then the second. They were detailed, personal, reflective. I felt a chill slide down my spine. When my name was called, I stood on shaky legs. The host continued, "Camilla Moore exemplifies perseverance. Working night shifts to support herself entirely through college, she maintained exceptional grades despite receiving no financial assistance from her family. Her dedication demonstrates the true heart of this scholarship." A murmur spread through the crowd. Heads turned. Some gasped softly. I saw my mother's face freeze in shock. My father's jaw tightened. Hannah's hands dropped the camera. Then the applause rose, loud, genuine, overwhelming. For the first time in my life, hundreds of strangers clapped for me, not for the girl standing 4 minutes behind me. I walked across the stage, each step steady, each breath a reclamation. When I accepted the award, the host shook my hand. "You earned this," he whispered. And I finally believed him. I turned to the audience, scanning faces until my eyes landed on the 3 people who spent my whole life pretending I was invisible. They weren't clapping, not even pretending. And somehow, that made the moment even sweeter. If the applause felt like a rising tide lifting me higher than I'd ever stood, the silence from my family afterward felt like a cold undertow trying to drag me back under. When I stepped off the stage, the room still buzzing with congratulations and camera flashes, I walked toward them, not for approval, not for affection, but for closure. My mother's expression was carved from something brittle and expensive, an imitation of pride she couldn't hold for long. My father stared at the floor, like the pattern in the carpet suddenly demanded study. Hannah was the only one who spoke first. "Wow," she said, forcing a laugh. "They really put your business out there." My business? That was what she took from all of that? I inhaled slowly, letting her words settle like dust before I brushed them off mentally. "They told the truth," I said simply. Hannah scoffed. "Well, you didn't have to make it sound like we abandoned you. It was college, Camila. Everyone struggles." My mother's lips tightened. "I don't appreciate being portrayed as a neglectful parent in front of all these people." I blinked once, then twice. A small, calm fire lit behind my sternum. "I didn't portray you as anything," I said. "I didn't write the speech. They pulled from my application. They told my story. The story you created." My father crossed his arms. "Watch your tone." I didn't flinch. Not this time. "Why? You don't like hearing the consequences of your actions spoken out loud?" A few people nearby turned their heads, sensing the tension. My mother leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "We're overreacting. We did the best we could." "Did you?" I asked softly. "Did you really?" Hannah rolled her eyes as if I were embarrassing her. "Can we not ruin the night? This is supposed to be a celebration." "It is a celebration. Of me. Something you've never bothered to show up for before now." My mother's jaw clenched. My father's nostrils flared. For once, they had no script, no pre-rehearsed line about responsibility or strength or character. They were bare in the face of a truth they'd spent years sidestepping. I succeeded in spite of them. A man in a navy suit approached, one of the ceremony coordinators. "Camila, sorry to interrupt. Some recruiters would love a word when you're ready." "Recruiters?" My mother snapped to attention. The man smiled warmly. "Yes, ma'am. Your daughter attracted a lot of interest tonight." My daughter. Funny how quickly they claimed me when someone else recognized my worth. I nodded politely. "I'll speak with them in a moment." He walked away, and the moment he disappeared, my mother's tone flipped like a coin. "Well," she said, voice sugary and false, "we're proud of you, truly." The lie pulled a small, sad smile from me. "No, you're not. But that's okay. I didn't do this for you." Hannah frowned. "Who did you do it for then?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "For me. For the girl you all ignored. For the young woman who worked while you partied. For the student who studied through tears while you slept. For the daughter you said didn't deserve help." Her mouth fell open slightly. My mother stiffened as if slapped. My father exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Before they could recover, another voice called out behind me. "Camila, we're ready for you." I turned and saw a small group of recruiters waiting, men and women in tailored suits, holding portfolios and business cards with the logos of prestigious firms. One stood slightly ahead of the others, a woman in a cream blazer with sharp eyes and a confident smile. "We'd like to talk to you. Your story was extraordinary." I stepped away from my family, feeling no guilt, no hesitation. "I'll be right there." As I walked toward them, I felt Hannah's stare burning into my back. I felt my mother's confusion, my father's stiff resentment, all of it clinging to me like smoke. But then something miraculous happened. It stopped hurting. It stopped meaning anything. The recruiters ushered me into a small side room off the main hall. The woman in the cream blazer offered her hand. "I'm Kimberly Levine, senior partner at Ford and Levine Accounting." My breath caught, not from fear, but disbelief. Ford and Levine was one of the biggest firms in New York. She said, "We followed your file closely. Your tenacity is rare and exactly the kind of grit we want in our team." My heart hammered. I don't know what to say. "Say yes," she smiled. "We'd like to offer you a junior analyst position. Full relocation included, if you're willing to move." Move? Away from home. Away from the house that shaped me but never held me. away from the imbalance that cut me open and left me learning how to stitch myself back together in the dark, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I'm willing. Kimberly smiled wider. Then welcome to your future. After our meeting, I returned to the hall to collect my bag. My family stood near the exit, unsure whether to wait or pretend they never came. Who were those people? My father asked. Recruiters. They offered me a job in New York. You're moving? Hannah blinked asked. Yes. My mother's mouth opened, then closed again. Well, what about us? I tilted my head slightly. What about you? We're family, she said weakly. Family, I repeated gently. Family loves all its children. Family supports effort, not just favorites. Family doesn't decide who deserves help and who doesn't. None of them spoke. I stepped back when my mother reached out, an instinctive boundary, the kind I never thought I'd have the courage to create. You don't have to worry, I said quietly. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm just done carrying the weight you placed on me. They still didn't speak, so I turned toward the exit, toward a life they couldn't claim or control. And when I stepped outside into the cool night air, the breeze touched my skin like freedom, whispering its first hello. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. I felt free. The morning after the ceremony felt strangely still, like the world had paused just enough for me to catch my breath. I woke in my tiny room, sunlight spilling across the cheap beige carpet, my black dress hanging from a hook on the closet door, like a quiet witness to everything that changed. My phone buzzed, 1 message from Hannah, 2 from my mother, a missed call from my father. I stared at the notifications, but I didn't open them. After years of being available for people who treated me like a backup plan, silence was the first kindness I gave myself. Instead, I slid out of bed and opened my laptop. On the screen, the email from Ford and Levine waited like a doorway. We look forward to finalizing your relocation plan. A tremor passed through me. Excitement layered with fear. Leaving home wasn't just a physical move, it was an emotional severing, a rewriting of my identity from the girl who wasn't chosen to the woman who chose herself. I took a long, steadying breath and replied, I accept. I'm ready. Once the message was sent, I sat back and felt something fragile inside me loosen. A tether that had been pulling at me for years finally snapped. I spent the next few hours preparing for my shift at the library, but my mind replayed last night on a loop. My mother's frozen face, Hannah's shock, Derek's denial. They weren't used to seeing me shine. They weren't used to seeing me at all. A small part of me wondered if they'd showed up at the ceremony hoping for another opportunity to dismiss me, to compare me to Hannah, to remind me of my place below her. Instead, they saw a version of me they never nurtured, never supported, never believed existed. A version of me that existed without them. When I arrived at work, my coworker Nolan noticed the change immediately. He was a lanky senior with a mop of curls and a voice that always sounded half asleep. You look different, he said, pushing a cart of books, like you figured out the cheat code to life. I laughed for the first time in days. Something like that. I told him about the scholarship, the ceremony, the offer. He let out a sharp whistle. Damn, Camila, you're out here doing endgame level stuff. The pride in his voice made my eyes sting unexpectedly. It was startling how quickly validation from strangers could soothe wounds my own family carved. Later that evening, during a slow hour, I checked my phone again. This time I opened Hannah's message. So, last night was wild. You kinda ambushed us with all that info. I blinked. Ambushed? I mean, you could have warned us they were going to say those things about you working alone. Mom cried in the car. I exhaled, a bitter sound escaping before I could stop it. Not once did she ask how I handled those years alone, only how her mother felt about hearing it. Another message came seconds later. Anyway, congrats. A single, lukewarm word. The emotional equivalent of tossing a penny into a wishing well and calling it generosity. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled to my mother's texts. We need to talk. You embarrassed us. Call us back immediately. Embarrassed them. I pressed the phone to the counter and stared at the floor until my heartbeat steadied. Their shame wasn't my responsibility. Their image wasn't my burden. Their disappointment wasn't my fault. On the walk home that night, the air was crisp, biting at my cheeks. The city lights blurred in the distance. I shoved my hands into my coat pockets and repeated the same quiet mantra. You owe them nothing. You owe yourself everything. When I reached my building, a shape moved from the stairwell. My breath hitched until I recognized the familiar posture. Nolan, holding a box. What's that? I asked, stepping closer. He grinned. You're going away, Kit. The library crew put it together. Inside were things I never knew I needed. Snacks for late nights, a small planner, sticky notes that said, "You got this," a keychain shaped like a little book, even a Metro card someone insisted I'd need for New York. I blinked hard. Nolan, this is... Don't cry, he said quickly. Seriously, don't. I can't handle emotions after 9 p.m. But a laugh broke through anyway, soft and unsteady. This small, unexpected kindness felt like the universe whispering that I wasn't alone. That love, real love, didn't have to hurt. It didn't have to be earned by breaking yourself over and over. As I stepped into my room that night, I held the box to my chest, feeling the unfamiliar warmth of support. Then, my phone buzzed again. From Mom. Call me tonight. We need to fix this before people get the wrong idea about our family. My jaw tightened. This was what they were worried about. Image, rumors, reputation. Fixing the narrative, not fixing the relationship. But this time, I didn't swallow my frustration. I typed back. There's nothing to fix. I told my truth. You are the ones who need to sit with it. I hit the send button before fear could stop me. Seconds later, the typing bubbles appeared, then disappeared. Appeared again, then stopped. Finally, one message came through. We raised you better than this. I stared at the screen, a slow, steady strength rising in me. They didn't, but I was raising myself now. And for the first time, I trusted the parent I had become for myself. What I didn't know, what I couldn't see yet, was how far my mother would go to restore her version of reality, how much she needed me to stay beneath Hannah, how much she depended on my silence, and what would happen when I refused to give it anymore. My mother didn't call me again that night, but I felt the weight of her silence like a storm building on the horizon. I knew her patterns too well. Marcia Moore didn't explode, she gathered pressure, collected anger like oxygen, and when she finally exhaled, someone always suffocated. The next morning, I woke to 12 missed calls, 4 from Mom, 3 from Dad, 5 from an unknown number that I knew, instinctively, was Hannah using some app to mask her caller ID. But I didn't answer. I showered, dressed, and packed my backpack for class. As I pulled on my shoes, my phone buzzed again. Another text. From Dad. Your mother is upset. Fix it today. Fix it. Funny how the people who broke everything always believed it was your job to repair what they shattered. I left my apartment and walked toward campus, letting the cold morning air clear my thoughts. I tried focusing on the future, New York, the new job, the life waiting for me, but my parents' voices clung to my mind like vines, always pulling me back. When I reached campus, Professor McLean caught my eye immediately. He waved me into his office. "Big night," he said, offering a rare smile. "Yeah," I breathed. "Bigger than I expected." He gestured for me to sit. "I wanted to check in. I saw your family at the ceremony. They looked surprised." I let out a short, humorless laugh. That's one way to put it. "Pride isn't always loud," he said gently. "Sometimes it's complicated." "Not with them," I replied. "Complication requires love. They gave all of that to Hannah." He studied me, his expression softening. "Does it bother you that they didn't celebrate you?" I opened my mouth to deny it, but something inside me slipped. Honesty spilled out before I could stop it. It didn't bother me until after I succeeded. I thought, maybe this one thing, maybe this could be the turning point. He nodded slowly. "You hoped they'd finally see you." I swallowed hard. "Yeah." "Camila," he said, leaning forward, "I've taught hundreds of students. Some are brilliant, some have privilege, some have both. But very few have your drive. That kind of resilience isn't born from being seen. It's built from being overlooked." His words hit me deep, settling into parts of me that had never been validated before. "I'm proud of you," he added quietly. I didn't mean to, but my eye stung. It was such a simple sentence, so ordinary, yet hearing it from someone who didn't owe me anything made it feel like my heart finally exhaled. After class, while grabbing a quick lunch in the student center, my phone buzzed again with another text from my mother. "Answer your phone right now or don't bother coming home for winter break." I stared at the screen, heat rushing through my body. Not anger, not fear, something deeper. Something that tasted like liberation. I typed back a single sentence. I wasn't planning on coming home. 3 dots appeared immediately, then vanished, then appeared again, then vanished. I slipped my phone into my pocket before she could respond. When I arrived at the library for my shift that night, Nolan waved me over. "Yo, celebrity! Someone came by to asking for you earlier." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "A woman, mid-50s-ish, kind of intense." My heart dropped. "What did she want?" "She didn't say, just asked if you worked here tonight. I told her your schedule wasn't public." He shrugged. She left after that. Kind of annoyed. My throat tightened. It had to be my mother. No one else would go that far. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Thanks for not giving her anything." "Of course," he said. "You good?" "Yeah," I lied, but I wasn't. I spent the rest of my shift glancing toward the door each time it opened. Every rustle of footsteps made my pulse jump. My mother showing up uninvited had never happened before. She'd always kept her distance unless she wanted something. For her to physically come here meant she was slipping out of her carefully crafted mask. When my shift ended at midnight, Nolan insisted on walking me home. "You watch horror movies," he said. "This is exactly how they start." I almost laughed. Almost. We parted at my building, and I climbed the narrow staircase to my floor. But as I turned the corner, I froze. A shadow moved near my door. I held my breath, every muscle stiff, my keys clenched between my fingers like weapons. Then the hallway light flickered, revealing a familiar face. Hannah. Sitting on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, eyes red. "What are you doing here?" I whispered. She looked up at me, mascara smudged, lips trembling. "Can we talk?" I felt my heart thud painfully. "It's midnight." She pushed herself to her feet. I didn't know where else to go. Mom is losing it. She's saying you betrayed us. Dad's yelling. They're blaming me for not telling them how hard things were for you. They're calling me selfish and spoiled and..." Her voice cracked. "I didn't ask for any of that, Camila." I swallowed slowly. "No, but you benefited from it."
She flinched like I slapped her. I didn't know, she whispered. You didn't want to know, I corrected gently. There is a difference. She wiped her cheek. I'm sorry. It was the first time in my entire life that Hannah Moore apologized for anything. But apologies were not cures. They didn't erase nights I spent working while she slept in comfort. They didn't undo years of being told I wasn't enough. They didn't fill the space where a mother's love should have been. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. I hesitated, then held it open just enough. You can come in, I said softly, but only if you're ready to hear the truth. She nodded, stepping forward with hesitant feet. The door clicked shut behind her. The room felt small, charged, waiting. She took a seat on my bed, looking around at the cramped space my parents never visited. Slowly, her eyes filled with a realization that had been decades delayed. This is how you lived? She whispered. Yes. And Mom? And Dad knew? They decided I deserve less. Her hand covered her mouth. Camila! She broke, tears spilling, shoulders shaking. For a moment, instinct told me to comfort her because I'd spent my whole life being the strong one, but I didn't move. Not this time. You came here for the truth, so here it is. I'm not responsible for your guilt. I'm not responsible for fixing Mom and Dad, and I'm not staying in a family where love has to be earned. She looked up at me, face blotchy and vulnerable. Are you leaving us? I'm choosing myself, I replied. If you want to be in my life, the door is open, but I'm done begging for a seat at the table. She nodded slowly, tears steady. We sat there in silence until she whispered the question I never expected from her. What do I do now? Her voice was small, frightened, and in that moment I realized something important. She wasn't my enemy. She was another casualty of our parents' favoritism. But saving her wasn't my job. Figure out who you are without Mom's approval, I said. It's scary, but it's worth it. Her shoulders slumped in relief, like she'd been given permission to breathe. And then she said something that would change everything about how I understood our childhood. Camila, they're terrified of losing control. That's why they're panicking. Mom said if you leave, the family will fall apart. I stared at her because I suddenly understood the truth. I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the foundation. And they were terrified of what would happen when I stopped holding everything together.
Hannah sat on the edge of my bed like a child who finally realized the monsters in the house weren't imaginary. They were our parents. Her fingers twisted in her lap, her voice small, her confidence stripped down to bone. For the first time in our lives, she didn't look like the golden child. She looked like a girl trying to understand how her world had been built on someone else's suffering. Camila, what do you mean you were the foundation? She asked. I sat across from her, back straight, hands folded, steady now in a way I didn't know I could be. Everything in that house worked because I didn't resist. I didn't complain. I didn't demand the same love you got. They needed me quiet so they could stay comfortable. Her brows pulled together. But Mom always said you were stronger, that you didn't need all that stuff, that you didn't want it. I gave her a tired smile. That was how she justified withholding love from me. Hannah dropped her gaze. I never questioned it. I know. For years I resented her. Not because she was loved, but because she never once looked over to see the darkness I lived in while she basked in warmth. But sitting here now, with her mask cracked and her privilege shaken, I felt something shift. Understanding was beginning to dawn in her eyes, and it carried a weight I'd been waiting my entire life for. She whispered, "They're scared, Camila. Mom kept saying if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh.
I'm not turning anyone against them, they're just not used to being held accountable. Hannah flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this. Firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her head jerked up, surprised. "I don't hate you," I repeated. "I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated." She swallowed hard. "I guess I always thought you liked being independent." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you enjoy being spoiled?" Her cheeks reddened. "I guess so." "Then imagine if Mom and Dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for." Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared, Camila. Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. "I'm not turning anyone against them. They're just not used to being held accountable." She flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this, firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her head jerked up, surprised. "I don't hate you," I repeated. "I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated." She swallowed hard. "I guess I always thought you liked being independent." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you enjoy being spoiled?" Her cheeks reddened. "I guess so." "Then imagine if Mom and Dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for." Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared. Camila, Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. "I'm not turning anyone against them. They're just not used to being held accountable." She flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this, firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her head jerked up, surprised. "I don't hate you. I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated." She swallowed hard. "I guess I always thought you liked being independent." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you enjoy being spoiled?" Her cheeks reddened. "I guess so." "Then imagine if Mom and Dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for." Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared. Camila, Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. "I'm not turning anyone against them. They're just not used to being held accountable." She flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this, firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." "I don't hate you.
I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated. She swallowed hard. I guess I always thought you liked being independent. I raised an eyebrow. Do you enjoy being spoiled? Her cheeks reddened. I guess so. Then imagine if mom and dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for. Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared. Camila, Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. I'm not turning anyone against them. They're just not used to being held accountable. She flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this. Firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her head jerked up, surprised. "I don't hate you. I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated." She swallowed hard. "I guess I always thought you liked being independent." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you enjoy being spoiled?" Her cheeks reddened. "I guess so. Then imagine if mom and dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for." Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared. Camila, Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful, that you were turning people against the family." I let out a sharp exhale, almost a laugh. I'm not turning anyone against them. They're just not used to being held accountable. She flinched. She'd never heard me speak like this. Firm, clear, unapologetic. She asked, "Do you hate me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her head jerked up, surprised. "I don't hate you. I hated how our parents used us, how they created a world where one twin was worthy of love and the other was tolerated." She swallowed hard. "I guess I always thought you liked being independent." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you enjoy being spoiled?" Her cheeks reddened. "I guess so. Then imagine if mom and dad punished you every time you didn't act spoiled enough. That's what they did to me with strength. They forced it onto me like armor I never asked for." Silence filled the room, thick but clarifying. Hannah didn't try to argue anymore. She didn't deny or deflect. She just absorbed the truth like a sponge, soaking up years of spilled pain. After a moment, she whispered, "They're scared. Mom kept saying, if she leaves, everything falls apart. She said you were being ungrateful." "They'll be furious that I came here." "They'll survive," I said, "and so will you." Her gaze softened and her voice trembled. "Can I stay here tonight?" Those 6 words fractured something in me. The girl who always needed, asking the girl who never got anything for herself. I nodded. "Yeah, you can stay." She exhaled in relief and lay back on my bed like she finally felt safe. I grabbed a spare blanket and sat beside her. For a long time, we didn't speak. We just breathed in sync, the same way we once did before life split us into 2 different daughters. Around 2 a.m., Hannah said softly, "I'm sorry I didn't see you. I should have asked more questions. I should have cared." "You were a kid," I murmured. "You believed what they told you. I did too." She turned toward me, eyes glossy. But you fought your way out, and I never tried to understand you. I made jokes, I brushed things off. I thought you were just being dramatic or distant. And I thought you were a princess who didn't care about anything but herself, I admitted. Maybe we were both wrong. We let the night hold us in that fragile new understanding, a truce, a beginning. But early the next morning, as sunlight painted the walls pale gold, my phone lit up with a message from my mother. I know where you live. If you don't answer me today, I'm coming back and I won't be quiet this time. My breath halted. Hannah, still half asleep, whispered, "Is that Mom?" I nodded. Hannah sat up instantly. "Camila, she's unhinged right now. She said you made her look abusive. Dad's blaming me for not defending them. They're spiraling." "I'm not responsible for their spiral," I said firmly. Hannah looked down. "I know, but they're not used to losing control." She was right. My parents lived in a world where they decided the truth. They wrote the script, we played our assigned roles. But now I'd rewritten my part without permission, and it destabilized everything. I stood and stretched, feeling my body grow lighter with a clarity I hadn't realized was waiting at the edge of my decisions. I'm moving to New York in 2 weeks. I'm leaving this entire dynamic behind. Hannah sucked in a sharp breath. Does that include leaving me? The fear in her voice didn't sound like manipulation this time. It sounded like a girl afraid of being left alone with the parents who shaped her into someone she never fully understood. I walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, not if you don't want it to." Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they weren't from guilt. They were from relief. "You're the first person I've ever looked up to," she whispered, "and I didn't even realize it until yesterday." My heart clenched. Then maybe it's time we figure out who we are outside of them. But even as the words left my lips, a chill crept through me, because I knew my mother. I knew her pride, her desperation to maintain her version of the truth. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And whatever was coming next, she was gonna make sure it hurt.
Hannah stayed curled up on my bed long after sunrise, her breathing soft and uneven, like she was relearning how to exist without the script our parents wrote for her. I stood at the window, arms folded, staring at the quiet street below while my mother's message replayed in my head. "I know where you live. I'm coming back." A strange duality twisted in my chest. Fear and clarity braided tightly together. Fear because I knew Marcia Moore didn't make empty threats. Clarity because for the first time, I wasn't the child hiding from her reactions. I was the adult shaping my own boundaries, and people like my mother only respected lines when they hit them like walls. Behind me, Hannah stirred. "Did Mom text again?" "No, but she will." Hannah sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "She's been unraveling since the ceremony. Dad, too. They don't know how to deal with being exposed." I turned from the window. I didn't expose them. I lived my truth. If they're ashamed of it, that's their conscience talking. Hannah sighed, head dropping. "They think you embarrassed them on purpose." I crossed my arms tighter. I didn't write the speech. They chose my story because it mattered. I mattered. She looked up at me with a fragile kind of awe. "I'm starting to understand that now." I studied her, my twin, my mirror in biology, but not in upbringing. For years, I thought she moved through life with ease because she didn't care about me. But now I saw it. She had simply never questioned the pedestal she'd been placed on. And now that pedestal was cracking. "Camila, Mom said some ugly things last night. She said you were ungrateful, that you needed to be brought back down. Dad said if you moved away, you'd ruin the family." I felt something cold settle inside me. They can't ruin me anymore. That's what they're afraid of. She hesitated. "What should I do?"
The answer rose in me, harder and sharper than I expected. Stop trying to manage their emotions. They made this dynamic, not you. She blinked, absorbing the truth slowly, painfully. But they're still our parents. Parents who only parented one child. You were their joy. I was their labor. A tear slid down her cheek. I didn't know. I know. But now you do. The room fell quiet as she wiped her eyes, staring at the floor like she needed it to steady her. After a moment, she asked, "Are you scared? About leaving? About them showing up again?" I inhaled deeply. Yes and no. I'm scared of what they'll try next, but I'm not scared of starting over. New York is freedom, it's distance, it's a life I built myself. She nodded slowly. I want that too. Maybe not New York, but a life that's mine. For a heartbeat, I saw us as little girls again. Two sets of small hands, identical eyes, identical smiles, before favoritism carved us into strangers. Maybe in another life, we could have grown together instead of apart. I walked back to the bed and sat beside her. You're not responsible for their reactions, and neither am I. I'm leaving because I'm done being their scapegoat, their afterthought, their strong one, whatever label they needed me to carry so they could keep praising you. She looked at me with a mix of guilt and gratitude. I want to understand you better. I want to be better. I nodded. Then start by seeing me. A soft knock suddenly rattled the door. Hannah's eyes widened. Oh God, that's Mom. I know it is. I held up my hand, signaling her to stay quiet. My pulse thudded in my ears. Another knock, louder this time, impatient. I approached slowly, heart hammering, and pressed my eye to the peephole. It wasn't Mom. It was Dad. And something in his posture, rigid shoulders, clenched jaw, twitching fingers, told me this wasn't a social visit. I steadied my breath, cracked the door just an inch, and kept the chain latch locked. What do you want? His eyes narrowed. Why didn't you answer your mother? I matched his tone. Why does she think she can threaten me? His lips twitched. You embarrassed her. You embarrassed all of us. No, I said evenly. I told the truth, and the truth embarrassed you. His fist hit the door frame, making Hannah flinch behind me. You will fix this. You will call your mother and apologize. I kept my spine straight, voice calm. I'm not apologizing for surviving. His eyes blazed. You're tearing this family apart. No, I said again. Your favoritism did that. He leaned closer, voice low and venomous. If you walk away, you'll regret it. We can make things very difficult for you. A cold chill slid down my spine, but I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't break. Not anymore, I said quietly. You don't control me. He growled under his breath and stepped back, pointing at me like I was a disobedient child. This isn't over. Actually, I said, and the word surprised even me, it is. I shut the door. Hannah rushed to me, panic flooding her eyes. Camila, he's never been that angry. Not with you. Not ever. I exhaled shakily, leaning against the door. He's angry because I'm not playing the role anymore. I'm not the daughter they can bend. Hannah grabbed my hand. He's gonna push Mom even harder. They're spiraling. I know, but their spiral isn't my responsibility. She looked at me like she finally saw the truth of that statement. But I also knew this moment, the door closing, my resistance standing firm, had set something irreversible in motion. My parents weren't going to accept my independence. They weren't going to let me leave quietly. And somewhere deep in my gut, I felt the shift. This wasn't just a family conflict anymore. It was a reckoning. And the storm was about to hit harder than ever. I didn't sleep the night my father came to my door. Every time a floorboard creaked in the hallway, my breath caught. Every car outside made my muscles tense. Hannah eventually fell asleep, curled up against the wall like a child afraid of being found. I sat in the dim light of my desk lamp, knees pulled to my chest, replaying every word Derek Moore had thrown at me. We can make things very difficult for you. Threats from strangers are frightening. Threats from the man who taught you how to ride a bike are paralyzing. By sunrise, exhaustion clung to me like a second skin. I brewed cheap coffee, my hands steady only because I'd stopped feeling much at all. Hannah watched me from the bed, eyes swollen from crying. "Camila, I'm scared," she whispered. I nodded. Me too. But fear wasn't enough to make me back down. Around 8, my email pinged. I assumed it was Ford and Levine with relocation instructions, but when I opened it, my mouth went dry. Subject: Inquiry regarding family complaint. The sender was from the university's Academic Integrity Office. My stomach dropped. I clicked the email with a trembling finger. "We received an anonymous report claiming you falsified your scholarship application and exaggerated financial hardship to gain an advantage. As standard protocol, we are required to review the allegations." I couldn't breathe. "You will be contacted for an interview." Attached were screenshots, blurred but familiar enough. My story, my quotes, misinterpreted lines taken out of context. The blood in my veins turned to ice. "Camila!" Hannah sat up, noticing the color drain from my face. "What happened?" I handed her the laptop with shaking hands. She read the email, her eyes widening in horror. No, they didn't. Mom wouldn't." But her voice faltered. Hannah knew. We both did. My mother didn't yell when she wanted control. She manipulated, she twisted truths, she weaponized perception. Before I could speak, my phone buzzed with a new text. From Mom: "You brought this on yourself. Fix it or the consequences will get worse." My throat tightened. She's trying to sabotage my scholarship. Hannah covered her mouth. She couldn't. She can. Because she's done things like this in small ways my whole life. Subtle things, petty things, whispering to teachers that I was sensitive, telling family members I was difficult, calling my first boss behind my back because she thought I was quitting too soon. Hannah's face crumpled. "Camila, I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," my voice cracked. "You were the one she protected." A heavy silence settled between us, weighted with decades we never spoke about. Hannah crawled toward me and sat on the floor, knees pulled up like mine. "How do we stop this?" she whispered. I took a deep breath. "We don't. I do." I opened my laptop again and began typing a response to the Academic Integrity Office. My fingers shook, but my words were clear. I welcome the review. Everything in my application is accurate. I have documentation for all financial statements, employment history, and academic records. Then I attach scanned pay stubs, rental receipts, bank statements showing tuition payments made by me alone. All the proof my parents had inadvertently created by refusing to support me. That was the irony. Their neglect was now my strongest evidence. Hannah watched me with an expression I'd never seen on her before. Admiration mixed with fear of what our parents had become. By afternoon, after class, I received a follow-up email. "Your documentation appears valid. The anonymous complaint lacked evidence. We apologize for any stress this caused. Congratulations again on your achievement." I exhaled so deeply, my back popped.
Relief washed through me, sharp and overwhelming. Hannah let out a shaky breath. "So, it's over," I said, my voice flat. No, this was only the opening shot. Because less than an hour later, I received another message, this time from an unknown number. "If you move to New York, don't expect us to support you ever again. You won't be welcome in our home. We raised you better than this." I stared at it, a strange numbness settling in my chest. "Is that Dad?" Hannah whispered. "No," I said softly. "Mom. She always hides behind threats dressed as parenting." The door of my apartment rattled suddenly. 3 sharp bangs. Hannah jumped so violently she knocked over my cup of pens. I looked through the peephole again. Marcia Moore. Her posture was stiff, her jaw tight, her eyes blazing. Hannah panicked. "Don't open it." "I have to," I said quietly. "This ends today." I unlatched the chain and opened the door just enough to face her. My mother's gaze swept over me, cold and assessing. "So, this is where you live," she said, dripping with judgment. "No wonder you have such a big mouth now." I stood firm. "What do you want?" She lifted her chin. "You will retract whatever lies you told in that scholarship application. You will apologize to this family, and you will promise not to embarrass us again." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. I didn't lie. She laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "You exaggerated. You made us look like monsters." I didn't blink. I didn't have to exaggerate. Her nostrils flared. "If you leave for New York, don't expect a relationship with me." This time there was no ache, no fear, no tiny dying hope. Just clarity. "I'm not leaving you, Mom," I said evenly. "I'm leaving the version of myself you prefer." Her eyes hardened. "You're making a mistake." Behind me, Hannah stepped into view. "Mom, you need to stop. Camila didn't lie. You hurt her." "Stay out of this," Mom snapped. "This is between me and the child who thinks she's better than us now." Hannah shrank back, stunned. And that was it. That was the line. I stepped forward. "I don't think I'm better. I am just done being less." My mother stiffened. "If you walk away, I'm not walking. I'm running." Her lips trembled with rage. "You're not welcome in our home." "That makes 2 of us," I replied. For the first time, she had no comeback. She stepped back, shaking with anger. "You'll regret this." "No," I whispered. "I regret staying silent for so long." The latch clicked into place. Hannah stood beside me, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "What now?" she whispered. I took a breath that tasted like freedom and fear intertwined. Now I choose me. But I knew one thing with a certainty that made my hands tremble. Marcia Moore wasn't done. She would strike again, and the next time, it wouldn't be with words.
I expected the fallout to settle into silence. That was always the rhythm of my family. Eruption, accusation, avoidance, repeat. But this time, the silence didn't come. What followed instead was a steady stream of small, calculated attacks designed to make me bend. They didn't understand yet that the version of me who bent under pressure died the moment I walked off that scholarship stage. The first sign came the next morning when my phone buzzed nonstop. Emails, notifications, password change requests, 3 attempts to log into my school account. Someone even tried accessing my bank login. My stomach flipped. "Mom?" Hannah asked, eyes wide. "Has to be," I whispered, pulse hammering. No one else would go this far. We spent hours locking everything down, passwords, security questions, even my payroll account at the library. I documented every alert, every suspicious attempt, and saved everything in a folder titled Evidence of Harassment, Moore Case. A folder I never imagined needing. By noon, Hannah's phone buzzed. She glanced down, face reddening. "Dad wants me to come home right now. He says we need to unify before you ruin the family." I sat back. Unify. That's code for picking a side. Hannah looked at me, guilt twisting her features. "I'm not going." "I'm at it." "Good, but be prepared for them to double down."
She bit her lip. What if they cut me off? Then, I said softly, you start learning how to live without their approval, like I did. Her eyes shimmered with fear and something else. Admiration, maybe, or awakening. Later that evening, I went to my shift at the library. I needed space. Hannah needed rest, and I needed to feel normal, even if just for a few hours. Nolan waved at me from the circulation desk, but his smile faded quickly. You okay? He asked. Define okay, I muttered. He winced. Yeah, you look like you've been through a blender. I forced a laugh and pushed the book cart toward the back shelves. For a moment, as I shelved textbooks, I allowed myself to breathe. To pretend my mother wasn't morphing into someone who could torpedo my future just to keep me in place. But reality hit fast. A shadow rounded the corner. A tall silhouette. Familiar. My heart seized. Dad. He stepped forward, hand shoved into his coat pockets, eyes dark and unreadable. We need to talk. I backed up slowly. You can't be here. I will talk where I want, especially when my daughter is destroying our family's reputation. My jaw flexed. I'm working. Work can wait. No, it can't, and neither can boundaries. You don't get to ambush me in the middle of my job. He stepped closer, ignoring every word. Your mother is sick over this. Sick, Camila. Do you understand? She hasn't eaten, she hasn't slept because of you. I inhaled sharply. There it was, the guilt hook he'd been sharpening for years. I'm not responsible for Mom's reaction to the truth, I said calmly. Scoff. Truth. You exaggerated. You made us look like trash. And for what? A trophy? A pat on the back? I didn't exaggerate. My voice rose despite my effort to control it. I lived exactly what I wrote. You didn't help me through school. You didn't pay my tuition. You didn't support me. His jaw tightened. We taught you strength. You taught me survival, I corrected, and then punished me for needing it. For a moment, he looked stunned, like he'd never heard himself reflected back honestly. Before he could recover, Nolan poked his head around the shelf, eyes widening. Is everything all right here? Dad turned on him with a glare. This is family business. Nolan didn't budge. This is a workplace. You need to step outside. I nearly choked on air. Nolan, 5'9", 20-something, skinny as a power cord, squaring up to Derek Moore? The courage wasn't logical, but God, I appreciated it. Dad's voice dropped to a simmering growl. You're making a mistake. You think these people care about you? They don't. We are your family. We raised you, and we can take away everything you think you've earned. I felt something in me ignite, a slow, steady flame that burned away every ounce of fear. You already took everything, I whispered. My childhood, my confidence, my place in the family. There's nothing left you can take. He stared at me, stunned, not by my words, but by the fact that I finally meant them. Before he could recover, Nolan gestured sternly. Sir, you need to leave before I call campus security. His nostrils flared. This isn't over. It is, I said. You just don't know it yet. He left without another word, footsteps echoing down the hallway like a retreating storm. The moment he disappeared, my knees almost buckled. Nolan caught my elbow. Jesus, Camila, you want me to walk you home again? No, I have to do this myself. But when I stepped outside at midnight, cold wind biting at my cheeks, I realized the truth. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of what my mother would do when she realized fear no longer worked on me. When I reached my apartment, Hannah was sitting at the table, eyes red but resolute. They want to take legal action. She's talking about suing the scholarship board. She said you sabotaged your own family name and she won't let you run away without consequences. My heart lurched. They'd lose. They have nothing. But they don't care about losing. They care about control. They care about punishing you. I sank into the chair across from her, exhaustion slamming into me. I don't know what they want from me. Yes, you do, she said gently. They want you to stay small. I closed my eyes. She was right. They wanted me trapped, dependent, grateful for scraps, silent enough to worship Hannah's pedestal, strong enough to carry the family's burdens, but never strong enough to question them. Not anymore. Hannah reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip was trembling but certain. I can't fix them, Camilla, but I'm not going to stand with them while they destroy you. A lump formed in my throat. Hannah, you don't... Yes, she said. I do. And I'm picking the truth. Outside, a car engine rumbled. Then a door slammed. Both of us froze. We moved to the window slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. A familiar figure stepped out of a gray sedan. My mother. Standing on the curb, staring up at my apartment window. Expression unreadable, too still, too calm. Hannah whispered, "Oh God," because this wasn't anger anymore. It was something far more dangerous, something calculated, something final. And I knew, deep in my marrow, that the real storm had just arrived.
My mother didn't move for a full minute. She just stood there, beneath the street lamp, hands clasped in front of her, face lifted toward my apartment window like some kind of silent omen, the kind of stillness that didn't feel human, the kind that made every instinct in my body go rigid. Hannah and I crouched below the windowsill, our breaths shallow and synchronized. I could feel her trembling through the floor. "She doesn't know which window is mine," Hannah whispered. "She knows," I murmured. "She always knows." We watched her step closer to the curb, craning her neck, eyes narrowing, searching, calculating, like she was trying to decide what version of herself to present tonight, the devastated mother, the furious disciplinarian, or the martyr she wore so easily. I stood slowly, pulling Hannah with me. "Stay behind me. Don't say a word unless I tell you to." We approached the door in silence. I could hear my pulse in my ears, thudding like fists against a locked door. When I opened it, a cool draft swept inside, carrying with it her perfume, elegant, floral, painfully familiar. "Camila." Her tone was too calm, too smooth. "We need to talk." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, blocking her view of Hannah. "No," I said softly, "we don't." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You've caused a lot of problems for this family these past few days." I stayed still. I told the truth. "You humiliated us," she corrected. "You made us look abusive, neglectful, cruel." "You were neglectful and cruel." Her nostrils flared, but only slightly. She was still in the performance phase. "You're twisting things. You always do this. You make everything sound worse than it is, so people feel sorry for you. You want to be the victim." My jaw tightened. I am not the victim. I'm the survivor. She took one measured step toward me. I matched it by stepping back. Her voice sharpened. "You're being dramatic. All families have struggles. All parents make sacrifices. You have no idea what we went through raising you two." I exhaled shakily. "You made sacrifices for Hannah, not me." Her eyes flashed, anger rising too fast for her to cage it. "You were always stronger than her. You didn't need what she needed." "No," I said, voice steadying even as my chest burned.
You convinced yourself I didn't need anything because giving it to me felt like a burden. That was when her smile cracked, revealing teeth. You think you're better than us now, don't you? She hissed. Because you got some little award, because a room full of strangers clapped for you? I swallowed. No, I just think I deserve basic respect. Respect, she snapped. Children don't demand respect, they earn it. I felt something inside me go perfectly still. I did earn it. You just refused to give it to me. Her face contorted. If you leave for New York, if you turn your back on this family, don't bother coming back. Not for holidays, not for weddings, not for funerals. My stomach twisted, but I didn't let it show. That's your choice, not mine. No, she said, it's yours, and you are choosing wrong. A silence stretched between us, thick, suffocating. Then she delivered the threat she'd been building toward. We spoke to Ford and Levine, left them a message, told them you're unstable, that you exaggerate, that you've been lying since you were a child. My heart stopped. Hannah must have heard it through the door because it slammed open. She rushed outside. Mom, what did you do? Marcia didn't look at her. The truth. If she won't listen to her parents, maybe her employers will set her straight. My throat tightened. Mom, why? Her eyes finally softened, but not with love, with obsession. Because you're throwing your life away. Because you need discipline. Because you are not ready to be on your own. I stared at her, the edges of my vision trembling. You would sabotage my future to keep me near you? To keep you safe, she corrected quickly. To keep the family together. To stop you from ruining everything. Hannah stepped between us. You're ruining everything, Mom. You and Dad, not her. Marcia's mouth twisted. Don't you dare speak to me like that. You raised us to believe she didn't deserve help. You raised me to think I was better. You used her. You controlled her. And now she's leaving and you can't stand it. Enough. No, Hannah said fiercely. You don't get to silence me anymore. You don't get to silence her. My mother's eyes shifted between us, panic flickering beneath her rage. She wasn't used to losing an audience. She wasn't used to her narrative being challenged. She stepped back, breath sharp. I won't let you tear this family apart. I felt my voice rise from a place inside me I had never touched before. Deep, resolute, unbreakable. You tore it apart. With favoritism, with cruelty, with manipulation. You built a house where only one twin mattered, and you expected me to keep holding it up. Her face flushed red, fury trembling through her body. You are ungrateful. Ungrateful, arrogant, and dramatic. You always were. You will lose everything without us. No, I whispered. Without you, I finally have a chance to live. Her hands shook, not with fear, but with the loss of power. She opened her mouth to speak, but Hannah put up a hand. Leave. Just go home. For the first time in my life, my sister wasn't standing beside our mother. She was standing beside me. Something in Marcia's expression cracked. Disbelief, betrayal, desperation. She looked at Hannah, then at me, and her voice dropped into something low and dangerous. You'll regret this. I won't, I said. She turned sharply and walked to her car. The door slammed. The engine roared. She sped off, taillights vanishing into the early evening frost. As soon as she disappeared, Hannah collapsed on the steps, shaking. I knelt beside her, my own body trembling with adrenaline. Camila, she called your job. What if... She called, but she didn't tell the truth, and she didn't know I already signed the contract. Hannah's eyes widened. So they can't take it away? No, I said firmly. She can't touch this. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. It's not your fault. She leaned into me, sobbing quietly. And for a moment, the world finally felt like it was shifting into place. Not perfectly, not painfully, but honestly. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail. From an unknown New York number. My stomach tightened.
I rose slowly, heart beating a dangerous rhythm against my ribs. Camilla? Hannah asked. I think I whispered, this is about the job. I pressed play. A woman's voice filled the air. Hi, Camilla. This is Kimberly from Ford and Levine. We've received a strange message from someone claiming to be a relative. I'd like to speak with you directly. My breath caught. I glanced at Hannah. The storm wasn't over. Not yet. But this time, I wasn't facing it alone.
I stared at my phone like it was a countdown to my own undoing. Kimberly's voicemail was polite, but beneath the calm tone was something sharp. Concern, suspicion, an invitation for me to defend myself before a lie solidified into truth. My mother had finally found a way to reach where it would hurt most. Not my heart, not my history, but my future. Hannah hovered near the doorway, wringing her hands. Are you going to call her back? I inhaled slowly. I have to. My fingers trembled as I dialed the number. The ring felt like an eternity, and I paced the width of my tiny apartment, counting cracks on the wall to keep from spiraling. Finally, Camilla, this is Kimberly. Her voice, professional, controlled, made my pulse spike. Hi, yes, I'm here. I appreciate you calling back so quickly. We received a message from someone claiming to be your mother. She said you were unstable, prone to exaggeration, and that your scholarship application contained misleading information. The words sliced through me, even though I'd predicted them. Hearing them spoken aloud by someone I respected sent an old ache slamming into my chest. I forced my breath to steady. I understand, but none of that is true. Everything in my application was factual. I provided documentation to the university. Kimberly paused. Yes, we confirmed that, but I wanted to hear from you directly. People can say anything when emotions run high, and unfortunately, family can complicate things. My throat tightened. My mother is trying to stop me from leaving home. She's been struggling with the idea of me moving away. Another pause, this one longer, gentler. Camilla, let me be clear. Her message doesn't affect your job. We chose you based on merit, and nothing about that has changed. I exhaled hard, my knees wobbled. Thank you, I whispered. But, she added, I want to know whether you feel safe. You don't have to share details. Just tell me if you need support or time before relocating. The question reached a part of me I didn't realize was raw. For years, no one ever asked if I felt safe. They asked if I was strong, if I was useful, if I could endure. Yes, I said softly. I'm safe. And I'm ready. Good. Then we'll see you in New York soon. We're excited to have you. When the call ended, I held the phone against my chest, eyes closed, letting the relief ripple through me. Hannah exhaled beside me like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. So that's it? You're still moving? Yes, I said. Mom can't stop anything anymore. Hannah's shoulders sagged with a mix of sadness and awe. You really did it. You didn't let them break you. I sat beside her on the couch. I almost let them. But somewhere along the way, surviving turned into strength, and strength turned into clarity. Her eyes filled again. I wish I had seen you sooner. I squeezed her hand. You do now. That's what matters.
We spent the next few days packing boxes and filling out forms, Hannah popping in and out of my apartment because she couldn't bear being home. Dad's messages escalated from guilt trips to icy silence. Mom's escalated from threats to long paragraphs about family loyalty, disappointment, sin, betrayal. I read none of them past the first sentence. 2 days before my move, I got another voicemail, this one from my father. Your mother is heartbroken. She didn't mean what she said. You need to stop this. You need to come home so we can talk. I deleted it. Hannah noticed. You're done, aren't you? Yes, I said. Done letting them rewrite my truth. Done being their backstage worker while Hannah gets the spotlight. Done being the strong one because it made their lives easier. She looked at me, eyes shimmering with something new. Respect. You deserve better. Moving day arrived sooner than expected. My boxes were stacked neatly by the door, labeled in the same handwriting I'd used to organize my life since childhood. My landlord nodded stiffly as I handed over the keys. A chapter closed without sentiment. Hannah insisted on taking me to the train station. The air was crisp, carrying the smell of wet cement and coffee from the nearby kiosk. As the train approached, Hannah hugged me so tight I felt some old, invisible thread between us finally reweave itself into something real. Please don't disappear, she whispered. Promise me we'll stay connected, not because of Mom and Dad, but because we're sisters, twins. I cupped her cheek. We will, because we're choosing it. Not them. The train doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside, heart pounding in my ears, tears threatening but never falling. Hannah waved as I found a seat by the window. As the train pulled away, the buildings blurred, the streets fell behind, and the weight of my childhood lightened like a coat I'd finally shrugged off. In its place was something new. Hope. Thin but steady. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from pain. I was running toward possibility. As the skyline shifted and the tracks hummed beneath me, I whispered to my reflection in the window. You never needed their approval. You needed your own. And for the first time, I believed it. If you learned something new from my life story, please like this video, subscribe to join our community for more stories like mine, and comment down below where you're watching this video from. I'd truly love to know.